6 years into my marriage, I was divorced with 3 children under the age of 5. It was extremely traumatic. It felt very alone, very scary. I literally had 3 babies, and keep in mind, my family did not live close. They lived across the country. I'm very grateful that I had some very close friends that really took me in and helped me through the process. But feeling alone with no support was probably the worst feeling I ever felt in my life.
Welcome, everyone. This is Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today is an incredible woman. Her name is Shternie Steinmetz, and it's kind of hard to introduce her because there's so many facets to her personality and to what she does. Shternie is an entrepreneur and business partner. For many years, she was a single mom. She's remarried and she has a blended family. She's also the founder of My Extended Family, which is an organization for children who come from single homes. Shternie, thank you so much for joining us. Did I forget something in that long description?
No.
There's so much to say, right?
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I know it was hard to get you with your busy schedule, but we're so happy that you're here.
My pleasure.
So Shternie, I want to hear a little about your story, but I was a little intrigued by the fact that you once said that if someone had known you 12 years ago, they would have seen you serving cereal to your children as a single mom, and serving cereal because that was all that you had at that time. And yet now today you're remarried, you have a beautiful blended family, and you are a wife, entrepreneur, business partner, founder of My Extended Family. Tell us a little about your story and what it was like at that point and how you got to where you got.
Okay, so I was married, went through the regular Jewish religious high school system and then off to seminary, my gap year in Israel. I came back.
Well, can you start with your childhood?
Sure.
You actually were on shlichus. You were in shlichus in California?
Yes, my parents are shluchim in Santa Monica, California. I'm the oldest of 9 children. So pretty much type A personality, super responsible, a lot of energy, go-getter, kind of like that.
I understand that you also had some siblings who had disabilities in your family.
Yes.
So what was that like to grow up with siblings with disabilities as the oldest and as a person on whose parents were on shlichus with such a busy household?
It was definitely challenging. It was challenging for my parents, and of course challenging for the family. It definitely put a tremendous amount of responsibility on me specifically, but probably most of my siblings. It was challenging. I'm not sure there's much more to say than it was challenging. It definitely gave me a lot of experience in life and maybe a lot of experience that then I wasn't happy about. But, later on in life, that experience really helped me, kind of shaped me, and it gave me a strength that I didn't know I had that I really needed later on in life.
Do you think that's what made you your type A personality, like you just said?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Could be you have to ask my parents that question because, I'm not sure. From a very young age, I remember being that way. There was a point in my life that I kind of maybe hid that because of the traumatic experiences that I went through, which, we'll get to. There was a point where I felt like I couldn't do anything and I'm not worthy and I'm not capable. And but when I finally found my grounding, it kicked in, and I think it kicked in 1,000 times more than I ever knew existed. And I think that's really what kept me going, that resilience, that strength, that energy.
Wow. Okay, go on. Tell us about the rest of the story and this traumatic experience.
So I went to, through the regular Chabad system. And then for high school, I actually didn't go to Chabad high school. There was none where we were living at the time. So I went to a regular Beis Yaakov, Orthodox, private, all-girls high school. Then I went to seminary for my gap year. And when I came back, I moved to New York and I got a job and I started my life. I eventually married. Had three children, very close in age. And I was divorced 6 years later. 6 years into my marriage, I was divorced with three children under the age of 5.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
I remember I was reading that you actually separated when your youngest was 6 weeks old. The youngest, the third of your children, 6 weeks old. I mean, that must have been such a vulnerable period in your life. Do you remember that time, what you were going through, the pain, I mean, can you tell us a little about that?
sure. Yes, it was extremely traumatic. It felt very alone, very scary. I literally had three babies, and keep in mind, my family did not live close. They lived across the country. I'm very grateful that I had some very close friends that really took me in and helped me through the process. But feeling alone with no support was probably the worst feeling I ever felt in my life. In addition, the Orthodox community has come a very long way in regards to a single mom or divorce.
Mhm.
When I got divorced so many years ago, I think it's now 15 years ago. Yes, almost 16 years ago.
Wow.
Um, there was a very heavy stigma,
Mhm.
kind of like, you messed up, figure it out. The community really didn't know how to relate to it or relate to me, or relate to my children for that matter.
Mhm.
And that made me feel even more alone. So
Mhm.
that was really, really difficult.
I can imagine. Wow. Wow. How do you think the community has changed since then?
Community has come a really long way. I think awareness has been key. And I think sadly, because the divorce rate in the Orthodox community has risen so much, I think everyone is kind of hit in the face with it. I don't know
Mhm.
anybody in my life, not family and not friends, that doesn't have somebody in their life that's divorced.
Mhm.
So when it's when it hits home, then you kind of have no choice but to deal with it. And I think a lot of that is the reason that the community has changed. And I think also
Mhm.
just simply awareness, social media and people talking about their experiences and not being scared to talk about their experiences. I feel like maybe, 20 years ago and more, people were scared to talk about getting divorced and everyone just kind of shoved it under the rug. And today people are outspoken, single moms are outspoken, single dads are outspoken. And, I think the community sees like, hey, these are real people going through a struggle, and they're opening their minds.
Absolutely, for sure. Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit more as your journey continued. You were a single mom with 3 kids?
Yes. So a single mom of three kids. I had always worked. So I know a lot of single moms, perhaps when they get divorced, haven't worked. And so that's a struggle for people to figure out how to fend for themselves and provide. But I was lucky. I worked from the day, I don't know, since I was born, I think. And so that, I have to get myself together. It was hard. I just had I had an infant. That was very difficult. But I put myself together and I went back to work. I was on maternity leave, went back to work, and I started very slowly rebuilding my life, um, stabilizing my kids. I had all of a sudden issues with things like tuition. Like I was paying tuition, and all of a sudden now, like I had to start again. And how was I paying tuition for three kids myself? Jewish uh, yeshiva tuition, which is not, um, yeah, it's not public school, so it's expensive. And I had to reevaluate like where my kids were in school and who was going to take me in and give me a discount. So there was like a lot of moving parts to stabilizing my life. I had to move out of the residence I was living in. It was just like an overhaul of everything in my life. And then there was the part of, the trauma to the kids and the going from the father back to me, and all the trauma and disarray that comes along with that. Um, and slowly we stabilized and I regained my strength, and I started fresh. I, at that point, was living in Flatbush in Brooklyn, and I became very close with a rabbi and rebbetzin there who I credit my life to today. I would not be here without them. The Rabbi Yossi and Tzipi Vigler, they're shulchan there. I became really close with them, and I guess they gave me something that I think no one else was able to give me or saw that was, able to give me. They gave me this like strength that just said like, you can do it. Like you can do this. And really that's all I needed to hear, because it's not like I had to relearn. I didn't have to learn how to be strong. I had to relearn how to be strong. And I needed someone to just,
You had it in you.
right. But I needed someone to say, hey, like you have it in you, you can do it, and they really, really were there for me, and my kids. And then at some point, after, a couple of years of stabilizing myself and being able to provide for my family.
So, Shternie, that was a lot to be going through. What about, did you ever feel like any anger at God? Did you feel resentful to the world? Like, how did you deal with those kind of emotions?
I was very angry at God. Felt like,
Why did he do this to you, right?
yeah, like what?
This
Forget
wasn't part of
me,
the script.
right? Or even forget me, but like my
Your
kids.
children,
Like, what did they
right?
do? Three innocent little babies, and you're going to destroy their lives. Like, why would you do this to them? And I
Of course.
struggled for a very long time. I was lucky enough, again, to have people in my life that kind of kept me grounded. And people like Rabbi Vigler, who I was able to ask real questions. He didn't shy away from these kinds of real questions and guided me through the process of saying like, yeah, you can be angry at God. That's fine. Feel it. Be angry. But then kind of like say, God, like you did this. This is on you. Like you have to take responsibility. I have to take responsibility, but so do you. Like you did this, and now hold my children, carry them
Help me.
through. Yeah, help me. And that really helped me a lot, because I felt like I shared the burden as opposed to it being just mine. I learned to share it with God. And when I did
Mm,
that, it alleviated a lot of the stress and pain and confusion. Still, it
mm,
wasn't easy. I did also make a pact to myself that no matter how I was feeling towards God, I would stay religious and, not make drastic changes in my kids' lives in regards to religion, and culture, because I felt like, I would feel it again one day.
mm-hmm,
And then what?
mm.
I didn't want this fluctuation and inconsistency and instability. So that's how I got through it. It wasn't easy.
It's interesting because here you're angry at God, but God is so much a part of your life, which is so often the case. You know, you're inviting God into your life while you're so angry at Him, and yet inviting Him into your life and telling Him that He has to take care of your children
Right.
is what's actually sustaining you.
Yep.
So that's beautiful. That's really an interesting observation.
Yep.
Wow. So how many years was that difficult struggle?
I think the real difficult part was probably 2, 3 years until I really
Hmm.
stabilized myself, and I ended up going into commercial real estate, and brokering. And that was in the height of the market where, people were doing really well, and I did really well. It was very uncommon for an Orthodox married mother, or I wasn't married anymore, but
Right.
for someone like me to be in the real estate world. So it was kind of an
Hmm.
anomaly, which helped me. And I did
Helped you in terms of your building up your own strength and
right.
seeing that you could do it. Is
Yes,
that what you mean?
yes, and
Yeah.
also because I was different. So
Mhm,
people took interest. And
mhm,
I did
mhm,
really well. Thank God I did really well. And I was able to support my family very nicely. My kids at that point, 3 years in, really didn't feel any different than anyone else, in the sense that they had what they needed and what they wanted. And I took them on vacation, and I provided very nicely for them. I worked very hard. Real estate is kind of that thing, especially in the Orthodox real estate world, where like it's not a 9 to 5 job, which was
mhm,
very good for me. I
mhm,
wanted to really be home with my kids, but I also really needed to work. So I had that flexibility. The flip side was that a lot of my clients, because they were on the road all day, took their calls for new deals at night. And so
mhm.
there were many nights that I used to call a babysitter, put my kids to sleep, call a babysitter, and go back to the office till like
Wow.
11, 12,
Mhm,
1 a.m.
mhm.
and get my work done, and then, come back and be able to be there for them in the
Wow.
hours that they were awake. Yes.
Right. Wow. So you're working really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's hear more of the story. Go ahead.
So,
And then what happened?
right. So then at some point I realized, like, I looked around the community and I said, like, we live in such a beautiful community. Um, in the Orthodox community, there's literally an organization, a charitable organization for everything and anything you can think of. Someone can have a new baby and need supplies, diapers, high chair, anything, and people bring it to you for free.
Amazing.
Sick children, there's an organization for sick children. I mean, literally there's everything in the world. And I started to realize that, like, my kids didn't have something for them and they were feeling a void. And I turned to Rabbi.
Your kids being kids of a single
Parent
household.
home, right? A single parent home. You know, in our culture, in our religion, we're really family oriented. Everything really, if you think about it for a second, like, everything revolves around family. Think about Shabbos, holidays, just everything is so family oriented. And when that, and the father is really a very strong figure.
Central.
Yeah, strong. Yeah, central figure in the home. The mother is as well. My kids had the mother part. They didn't have the father living at home. And that was something that they felt a void. And they didn't really have anyone. Yes, they were in therapy, but they didn't really have anyone of any of their peers to discuss that with, or to feel comfortable talking to, or anyone that would really understand them. I think all three of my children were the only ones in their grades that came from single parent homes. And my kids went to large schools. My daughter was in Beisurka. I think she had 200 girls in her grade, and she was the only one. So there really wasn't that camaraderie, sort of. And so I went to Rabbi and Rabbi Tzvegler. I said, like, we got to do something. Now, they are doers, and they were right away in, and they said, yes, let's start something. And we decided that it was around Hanukkah time, and we decided we were going to have, like, a little Hanukkah party, and we would invite the local kids from single parent homes, and we would do it in the rabbi's living room. If you know anything about your average Chabad rabbi, their living rooms are not that big. And well, to make a long story short, we had to rent a hall. We had 400 kids that showed up.
Wow.
That were RSVP'd. And that's how the organization started, because at that point we realized how great the need really was. Till now we thought, like, a few kids will turn up, and all of a sudden there was this boom. And that's how the organization began from that day.
The organization, my extended family?
Yes, that's how it began. And today we service 7 communities. We see over 600 children a week. So it's quite grown since these stages. Yes.
So I didn't even realize myself that you started you started the beginnings of my extended family when you were still a single mom. Which is so interesting. You felt that there was a need for something, and let's do it. I thought it was after you became remarried and your situation changed. So I like that. I like that a lot. That when you're in a situation and you feel a need, you don't just wait for somebody else to do it, but you actually roll up your sleeves and you go for it. That's incredible.
Yeah, and my kids are the product of my extended family. My kids went through the program and are graduates of the program. And my oldest daughter, was a volunteer in the program. My second daughter is now a volunteer in the program. So it's very interesting to see the circle kind of life where, sometimes you're a taker and sometimes you're a giver. And, single moms call me from all over the world, actually, just to kind of chat and, hear my story and see where they can take some strength from. And a lot of them are always feeling bad that they have to take that, that someone will offer them help, and it's uncomfortable. And I always tell them, it's a circle. I was you, and I made a promise that one day I was going to give back, and I held on to that promise. And today I'm able to do that. I'm able to support the organization, help support the organization financially. I'm able to be involved. And I always tell these single moms, like, make that deal with God. Tell God, yes, I'll be on the receiving end now, but it can't last that long. And one day I'm going to give it back. And that always makes people feel better. There's a purpose. It's not just this, like, forever never-ending saga of me taking.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. And life is so much like a circle. One day you're on the bottom, one day and you're on the top. And I guess giving back doesn't even only have to mean
No
financially.
way.
There's so many ways that you can give
Yeah.
back.
A lot of these single moms have come back. They're volunteers.
Mm,
We require a lot of volunteers. They're volunteers. They're donors. And even if in that moment where you feel like you have nothing to offer and you have to be the receiver, I always tell them, pick up the phone to another single mom and just
mm,
say hi, smile at her, give her a kind word, go give her a hug. Like, you can be a giver and a taker at the same time.
right, right. That's so true.
Yeah,
And we all are takers to someone and givers to
of
someone.
course.
So that's beautiful. That really is beautiful. Tell us more about your story. What happens next?
So I started dating when I was ready, and I was really struggling to find a person that I really felt I could rebuild a life with. I had very specific requirements in regards
Mhm,
to family focused, and someone that would, take my children live with me full time. So someone that
mhm,
would really be open to that, which is hard to take in someone else's children. It's extremely hard. And I wasn't really finding what I was looking for.
mhm,
And I remember it was one Rosh Hashanah, and I was sitting in shul, and I have a friend that I used to sit next to for years in shul on Rosh Hashanah through davening, through prayers. And at the end of Rosh Hashanah, she came over to me. She said, "Shternie, like something's not right with you. I feel it. Like you're
mm,
praying, your davening is just not the same." And I told her, I said, I I kind of gave up on dating. And she was like, "Please go talk to Rabbi Vigler about this. Go discuss it with someone. Like, don't give up." And I went to him. I told him, like, I'm done. Like, I tried so hard. I've opened myself up to so many opportunities, and I'm not finding. Maybe this is not what God wants from me. Maybe God just wants me to raise my family, to support them, take care of them, give back to the community in whatever ways I can. And maybe it's not in my cards to remarry. And I had really
mm,
just like kind of like given up, and I was okay with it, or I thought I was okay with it.
mhm.
And after having a really long conversation with Rabbi Vigler, he told me, it's okay to kind of give it over to God, like he always tells me, like, give it over to God. Don't give up inside, but kind of say, God, like, this is what I want. I can't handle this myself. I'm doing the best I can. It's not producing results. Like, help me, kind of give the load to him. And I worked through that, and I did that. And 6 months later, I was married.
Whoa. Wow.
I met my
Wow.
husband right after the holiday of Sukkot, so maybe a few weeks after Rosh Hashanah, and we were married 6 months later.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
So
Is that Yeah, and that applies really to so many issues of our lives. If we can just give it over to God, just say, "Okay, God, it's on my shoulders. I'm giving it to you
yeah,
right now." Yeah.
it's worked so many
Wow.
times for me. It's a hard
Wow.
process. It's not an easy process. It's a really difficult thing to do because we're humans and we feel like we have control and we want to call the shots and we want to feel in control. At the end of the day, we're really not. I've learned that.
Right. Especially, you seem like someone who's very in control of
Yes.
of things. You're very on top of things.
Yes.
Like you said, you're a type A personality. So just to really relinquish that control and say, "But what does it mean relinquish that control? Like, what did it mean for you?"
It meant putting the worrisome part on God, not
Mm,
like doing the motions. Yes, if you want to marry, you need to be out there and you need to date and you need to um, do the
put in your effort.
motions. You're right, put in your effort,
Mhm,
but the whole worrying about it and stressing about it and that you got to give over to God. I think that for me is what allowed me to be on the receiving end of finding someone who would complement my life.
mhm. Wow.
Does that make sense?
So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it makes sense for all areas of our life. Like, you just give over the worry
Yeah.
because that opens yourself up to new possibilities. We're so consumed with we give so much energy to the worry of it.
Yeah.
It's not even the efforts that we're putting in that it takes so much of their energy. It's the worry, the heaviness, the burden that we feel is constantly on us, and in any area of our life, whether it be in livelihood, whether it be with health, whether it be in any situation. I think that lesson that you're just teaching us really applies to everything. If we can just take off that worry and say, I'll continue doing my part and my effort, but God, it's on you.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Yes.
Wow. Incredible. So you met your husband, and he was?
I met my husband, and he comes from a very different background than me. We both grew up Hasidic, but I grew up Chabad or Lubavitch, and he grew up a Hasidic sect called Klosenberg, which is much more insulated, extreme. He's one of 15 children, very different than me in regards to our upbringings. But a lot of our core values we found to be super similar. And we decided that we weren't going to let these differences interfere. And on the contrary, we were going to use these differences to build a home that kind of incorporated both of our backgrounds, both of our lives, and so blend the past and also grow the future together. So neither of us came into the marriage thinking like it's going to be this way, or a different way. It was going to be whatever we created it to be. And I think when other single parents call me and ask me like, how do you make it work? Or people ask me all the time, what did you have to change to marry your husband? And I always tell them, absolutely nothing. Obviously, change in growth, yes. But did I have to change anything religiously or culturally? Absolutely not. I look very different than my sister-in-laws. My lifestyle is very different than them, but they have been welcoming and open, and I'm super close with them. And I think that's important in general. When people ask me, and I tell them, like, at the end of the day, it boils down to respect. If you have a mutual respect, then everything works. Like, you can make anything work.
Well, you can make anything work, but you said your core values were very similar.
Right.
Tell us a little about that. Like, what were the core values that you felt you both had, that you could accept all the externals,
Right.
all the external aspects of life that aren't really so significant?
Right. So family was very important to us. So my husband has 2 children from his previous marriage. I have 3. So family was super important. God was super important to both of us. And having an open home was very, very important to us. So people who know us know that our home is constantly open. We constantly have people in and out of it. Our guest rooms are full on a regular basis. We really wanted a warm home where people who maybe don't have a place to feel home can feel comfortable. So that was very important to us. And it was very important for us to give back to the community. That was something we were both involved in before we met each other. And then growth. We both were on a growth journey. And it was important for us to continue that growth journey in regards to our relationship with God, our relationship to each other. And we kept telling ourselves, like, we don't just want to be married. We actually want to build something special together. And that's something that was very important to us.
Those are beautiful values, really beautiful values. And, knowing your home, it is always open. You do always have guests there in a beautiful way. Is that ever difficult for you? Are you a private person? Do you need your privacy? Like, how do you cope with all the guests, not all the time?
Right. So I'm not the most, actually, no one's ever asked me that. I'm a private person. I don't even know, because I think I was raised from day one in a home like that. When you're on shlichus, there is no privacy. I think today's generation, like the younger, like my age, do put emphasis on family privacy and all of that. But when I grew up, most of the people,
Right.
we didn't, that wasn't existent. Like that just didn't exist. So I
Right.
don't know if uh, I'm a private person in the sense that I don't share things with everyone. I'm very particular who I bring into my very close space. But
Mm-hmm.
in regards to like my home, I'm not that private. And if I need privacy, I'm okay to just go upstairs and close the door and take some time for myself.
Right.
But in general, I'm not, on a superficial level, I'm not a private person. With the
Mm-hmm.
important things, yes, I'm very selective who I share my real inner struggles or thoughts with.
Right. Right. Absolutely. What was it like marrying into someone who also had children? How do you deal with a blended family? What's that like, and what tips can you give us for those who are doing that?
So I'm going to be very vague here, just because I
Okay.
have these are teenage girls at this point. Both my daughters
Right.
and my husband's daughters are teenage girls, and
Of
um,
course.
blended families are super super challenging. Um, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes that I'll never be able to fix.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a tremendous amount. Again, I'm just going to speak for myself. My husband has a
Mm-hmm.
different experience. I struggled. I really struggled to find the balance and to be able to show genuine love to children that were not biologically mine.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. It was very difficult. It took a toll on my own confidence. Um, it took a toll on my relationship with my husband. Obviously, these are his biological
Mm-hmm.
children, and it took a toll on the family as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we got to a comfortable place. Took a lot of time, a lot of professional help. But blended families are really a unique thing, and um, I'm not a good person to give tips on this because I really struggled. What I
Mm-hmm.
could say is that it's so, so important to have someone in your life that you can discuss these issues with, whether it's a therapist or someone who went through it before, a rabbi, someone who can be there for you, guide you, um, because I think it's an emotional thing. And I can speak for myself when I'm operating out of my emotional space, I don't always make the best decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, don't we usually operate from an emotional space?
uh,
What do you mean by that? You mean if you think of a higher purpose or a higher meaning? Is that what you
I
mean?
think, um, sometimes we make decisions based on our cerebral
Mhm,
space. Like in
mhm,
business, I've always
mhm,
made my decisions out of a very cerebral
mhm,
space and no emotions
mhm,
involved whatsoever. But
mhm.
something like this is so super emotionally charged that it's
Sure.
hard to see um, it's the practicality of it, the what actually really makes sense as opposed to how you feel. I
Mhm,
don't know how else to
mhm,
describe it. It's something that I never even thought it would be an issue for me. I never even thought, like, that's the thing. It's not like I went in thinking, okay, this is going to be hard for me. I went in thinking, big deal. It's going to be easy.
right,
It
right,
really wasn't.
right. When you say you made some mistakes, could you share with us some things that we should not be doing or someone should not be doing in such a situation?
It's hard to say. I could tell you what maybe. Let me try to think if there's maybe I could just say a mistake that I made.
Sure.
Um, when you're in a new marriage, I think this probably pertains to anyone in a new marriage, specifically a second marriage. A wife wants to be the priority, the center of attention. You want to feel that. And when you're in a new marriage, I know from friends that sometimes they struggle with the mother-in-law thing. Like their husbands are mommy's boys, and when their mother calls, they run. It doesn't matter if they're in conversation with their wife, they pick up for their mother. And I think this is a global issue. I mean, not only in the religious Jewish world.
Of course.
In a second marriage, it's the kids. And I struggled very much with feeling that I was the number one, that I was the priority. Even though I was, looking back, I realized how much I was, but I couldn't see it then. So I think that's something I would say to be mindful of in a second marriage or in a blended family, to build that relationship with your spouse that you know, or you can communicate to him how to make you feel like you are the most important thing in the world, so that you don't feel insecure or inferior.
So I guess you don't feel neglected in any way, right? Wow. Looking back at your life now, what would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I think I would tell myself that there's hope.
I mean, there's a long life ahead of you.
Yes.
I'm just talking about now,
Sure.
You're in a lot of different positions in a lot of different stages of your life.
Right. I think I would tell myself, like, there's hope, there's light. I think there was times that if I had felt hope, I would have been better off. And I think I would tell myself the same thing I tell other single moms now, and that is, it's okay to take help. Again, it was so hard for me. It was so difficult for me. My personality, being the oldest, I was never on the taking side. And it's so important to be able to say, okay, yes, I'll take the help because I truly need it. And I think if I would have been able to be the receiver in a more easy way, I think it would have been very helpful for me. So those are two things I think I would tell my younger self.
That's great advice. From your background and from your knowledge with Hasidic teachings and Hasidic thought, is there something that inspires you today or inspired you during your difficult times that you can share with us?
That's a good question. So I think there's a unique way in which Hasidus teaches us to have a relationship with God that I don't think exists outside of the Hasidic world. And that is, like, God is not this fear monger and we're not afraid of him, but rather he's our Father and he loves us. And the approach, I think, to God is different when you learn Hasidic teachings. I think that helped me. Like, I tell my kids all the time, like, just talk to God. Like, I don't care what language it's in. It doesn't have to be from a siddur, from a prayer book. Just have a relationship with God. Build your relationship with God. And I think that really helped me so many times when I needed to just feel like God was my Father and not like I made a mistake now and he's going to punish me. So I think that Hasidic concept really helped me through a lot of difficult times.
Beautiful. When you look back, what's the greatest hardship that you had in your life, and what is the greatest hardship that you find that you confront nowadays?
So I forget. Yes, very good questions. Really challenged me.
Good.
Okay, the hardest challenge was definitely being divorced with 3 children under the age of 5. There's no doubt about it. It was the most difficult thing I ever did in my life. That first year was excruciating. Had a brand new infant baby, 2 little girls. It was excruciating. And sometimes I actually look back and I think, wow, like, I got through that. Like, how
Wow.
even, it almost felt not possible. So that was probably my biggest challenge. You asked me my biggest challenge today? My biggest challenge today, I think, is balancing my family life and my community life.
Mm.
where I feel like I have almost this obligation to give back because God was so good to me that I constantly feel this, I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I need to do more. And when I just have like a quiet day at home with my kids and I thoroughly enjoy it, in the back of my head, I feel like, what did I do today? That felt very selfish. Like, yes, I
Mm.
enjoyed my day with my children, but what did I do for other people? So when my phone rings and I know it's a single mom calling me or something like that, and I can't take the call, or the organization needs me to fundraise and I can't be there that day, those things are really challenging for me to say, like, no, my family is my priority, my kids, my husband, this is where I need to be. And this is also giving back. And this is also God's work. So I think
Sure.
that's my biggest challenge.
Wow, that's very true. You're a big philanthropist, you and your husband. What are the things that speak to your heart? What are the things that are close to your heart?
Well, automatically anything to do with, a child from a single parent home or single moms, single dads, like those things really talk to us. But in general, I've learned philanthropy from my husband, really. He literally never says no.
Mm.
And even it doesn't really matter the amount, sometimes he can give a lot and sometimes he'll decide to give a little, but he gives. I've learned that from him. And he always says that, like, you have an opportunity sometimes to take a person out of their Egypt, out of their Mitzrayim. So like when the Jews were in Egypt, they were slaves and they were downtrodden and they were depressed and sad and they were really struggling financially, emotionally. I mean, all that trauma. And all they needed was Moses to come and just like get them out. And my husband says sometimes, someone can come to your door and with $100, you can literally just take them out of that pain, out of that Egypt. So that's
Mm.
kind of what keeps us going. We're not people that love to give to like big organizations or things like that, but rather to those individual people who really
Mm.
could use that extra help and that boost.
That's a powerful thought that you could be that Moshe, that you could be the Moses who takes someone out of their
Yeah.
Egypt. Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess we can all do that in whatever way, even if it's not through giving charity, but be the person, the listening ear, the helping
The
hand,
smile.
the smile, the supportive shoulder,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. That's so true.
Shternie, what's in the future for you? Did you think about that? What's down the road for you? There's
That's in the
so many
future.
things that you've gone through.
Uh,
What are your hopes or dreams?
my hopes and dreams is just be able to continue to raise my family, and hopefully God will continue to give us the means to help the community and support the community. I would love to see my children, happily married. That's something that always kind of sits in the back of my head, and it's not something you can control. It's another thing where like you just got to give over to God. But it does sit in the back of my head. I just want to see. I don't want them to ever go through that pain or the struggle that I went through. So that's something that's probably my biggest hope. My dream is that they should just all get married and settle and be in loving, supportive relationships. So that would be in regards to that. In regards to me, my husband, I just want to travel. We love to travel.
Nice.
We
Yeah.
we love to see the world. We travel a
Wow.
lot, so that's something I hope to see in the future. More of as the kids get bigger. And I
Yeah,
really,
I was also touched by how you told people when they travel, ask the local shliach that you're traveling to if they need anything, if they need snacks for their children. You just might need to put a few things in your suitcase, and that could make such a difference for them.
yes,
And, that's so true.
yeah, I try to encourage people, if you're going to your local Chabad rabbi, like they're not they're not really there for tourists. Like they're not really there to host your vacation. And if you are going there and you are going to use their services, their Chabad house, their mikvah, their Shabbos meal, whatever it is, just yes, you pay for your services, but also like go that extra mile, because I had a shliach one time who literally asked me to bring Motrin. She's like, we cannot get normal Motrin here. And that was such a silly thing. It takes up this much room in my suitcase. And I was able to literally change, change her whole, she gets headaches and whatever. So it's like those little things, that really matter. So yeah, so traveling is definitely in our future. And what else? I have a lot of ideas about things I want to get involved in, and but time will tell.
In the right time, in the right place.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right. Shternie, thank you so much for joining us
Of course.
today. It was really inspirational to hear your story and to think from, from only being able to give your children cereal to what you've accomplished today and what you continue to accomplish. It's really a wonderful thing to see. May you and your husband and your entire family have continued success in all that you do and be able to continue being on the giving end
Thank you.
for
Thank
everyone.
you. I mean, with God's help.
There were so many parts that from that interview with Shternie Steinmetz that struck me. Such a story of coming from a place where she didn't know what to feed her children other than cereal to being today a noted philanthropist, a partner in a business, thriving business, and the founder of my extended family. Some of the things that I noted with that really struck me was how she spoke about the wheel of life, and how at times we really are on the top and at times we're really at the bottom, and how it turns, and how if we can remember that it's turning, if we can remember that things change and that our situation changes, that even if it feels so dark at one point, who knows what tomorrow is going to actually bring. Another thing that she spoke about was the act of giving, even when we're in a situation where we are at a difficult point in our life, how we can all be givers and how we can all really be givers to somebody, how she advises the single moms to call other single moms and in that way be a giver. Because when you feel like you're always taking, it's important to somehow be that giver, to somehow be able to give to somebody else. Another part that I really, really enjoyed was how she spoke about God and how we can ask God to be a part of our lives and give over the burden to God. We're all carrying so many burdens on our shoulders and so many challenges and struggles and things that we need help with. And at the same time, while she was angry at God, she was also carrying God with her and giving over her challenges to God. And that really is something that we could apply to every single day of our lives. Anytime that we're feeling that challenge, being open to giving it over to God really helps us to open ourselves up to new possibilities and to ultimately to God's help, and understanding that God alone is the one in charge. So if you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope that you are subscribed to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. You can subscribe right here on Chabad.org. Make sure that you click the button there to get this delivered regularly to your email. We love to hear your feedback. Please let us know. I really enjoy reading all your comments. As well, we are on Spotify or on Apple. If you're somebody who likes to watch podcasts, please watch us there. You can go for a walk, you can take a drive, and listen to us there. Thank you again so much for being a part of this community and being a part of Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. Until next time, thank you.